And let me get my co-host here. Okay. So welcome back to our 42nd session on angels, immortality of spirit, and resurrection. So for those who have been following with us since last year, we finished our study of the 29th word, which was made of two aims. The first one talked about angels and immortality of spirit, and the second aim was proofs for the necessity and existence of resurrection. So before we moved on to our next topic, we also wanted to read this section from the 11th Ray, also by Imam Nursi. 11th Ray is called The Fruits of Belief, and it's made of 11 sections. And the last section is about the fruits of belief in angels. So we've been kind of going piece by piece and reflecting on what everything here means. Last week, I think we had a particularly fruitful session, and especially recently, we've been talking a lot about istighfar. And last week's halaqah was kind of about that topic as well. We kind of connected it there. But just as an overview for anyone who's maybe joining us for the first time for our study of angels, our aim here is not to look at traditional or memorized scripts about angels and what it means to believe in angels, but to understand what belief in angels means for our lives every day, and how we can actually confirm that angels exist, an angelic side to creation exists, that there's always a line of communication and meaning between us and our creator. And throughout our study, we have looked at this as the Melekut side of creation, the side of creation that looks to the beautiful names of God, and that speaks to our souls, our spirit. So I will stop there. I'll let anyone share anything that they would like from either last week or overall, and then we can start reading, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to all of our new friends. Super excited to have a growing group with us as we study something so real and so often not discussed, the study of angels. So I'm just going to recap some of my notes that I put in bold last week from Dr. Yamina so that I can share what really caught my attention and what's worthy of repetition, especially in our climate today. So for those who are new, what we discussed in our previous study was that we're either interacting strictly with matter and therefore existing in a very dark, coarse world, taking the things at face value, meaning that we're just taking the things that are happening as they're happening, the face value of them, and that Imam Nursi called dark and coarse. The alternative is interacting with the meaning, the angels, which points to the names of God. And when we're interacting with this side, called the Malakut side, only then can we exist in a state of remembrance. So when you're remembering God through interacting with creation, you are necessarily interacting with angels who are the vehicles that bring us that news, but often we're unaware that these ideas of God or these qualities that we're interacting with, like, oh, wow, how amazing was that? How beautiful is this? How something is actually communicating those feelings to us, and those are angels. And then when we live in that way, the world becomes more transparent. And then we're also at the same time operating from the ruh, this reality of who we actually are. So, with the world happenings that are shaking the earth right now, um, Dr. Yamina was sharing two different kinds of fear, which really resonated with me. So, there's fear that is disconnected from God, that leads us to feel anxiety and worry, and that the Quran says is from shaitan, right? It's from this voice that is intending us to be disconnected. And then there's fear that comes to the believer, which brings us back to God. It comes and it reminds us of something that we need, and that increases us in iman or belief, because our seeking God's help increases. So that was a important pause for us all to reevaluate the state of our being, and to be very honest with ourselves, right? Because the work that we do here in Receiving Noor is contemplative and reflective, and we take it real slow because it's meant to be transformative and not information. In fact, Dr. Yamina often repeats that the stuff that we learn is not intellectual at all. You have to sit with it, reflect on it until the heart tastes the truth of it. And it's a totally different, that's a game-changing experience. It has nothing to do with taking notes and gaining information. Um, so she says, even if we cry to God for help in this disconnected way, a part of us is still questioning or doubting, where is God? So we become aware. I know I've definitely been in that state plenty of times. So I bolded all of this for myself. Maybe it'll resonate with some of you. So she was saying the importance of istighfar, seeking God's forgiveness, because this disconnected state is subtle, and we have to go back to the angelic side, malakut, back to living from the ruh of who we actually are. And she reminded us of the beautiful verses where God says, if there are, okay, wait, let me start from the beginning. It's in Surah Al-Anfal, that's chapter 8. If there are 20 who are sabirun, that are patient and steadfast and standing firm, that means with the grounded belief. That's not the disconnected fear. If there are 20 who are sabirun, patient, steadfast, standing firm in iman in the face of calamity. In the face of calamity is where you see who is who, right? So there's a lot of revealing happening right now in the face of adversity. 20 will be victorious over 200. And if there are 100 sabirun, patient, steadfast, and they will overcome 1,000 min alladhina kafaru. So the power of a group of us, let's say, we're 16 on the call, and if we can bring ourselves to this sincere istighfar, and our hearts can be filled with this seeking God's forgiveness for being disconnected in how we perceive the events, of thinking any single being has power, like these people are quote unquote powerful to do something, or powerful over X being, forgetting completely that in an instant, Dr. Amina said, in an instant, their breath could just be snatched away and they'd be lifeless. So what power do they really have? Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah for being convinced of the face value of things that appear powerful, completely forgetting they have zero power over their own breath. In fact, it's only God's plan. In fact, it's only God's plan. In fact, it's only God's plan. So, Bismillah, let us all renew our intention. And oh, my favorite part was the end. She said that there's a critical point where everything changes drastically, like water. It's completely liquid, and you put it in the freezer, and then there's that critical point where completely changes over to ice. So, in the same way, the state of the Ummah, like the state, our state of humanity as brothers and sisters, also has a critical point. And the more that we are closer to that critical point, then everything will change. And that's the power of making istighfar, remembering that everything is in God's hands. And the Sunnatullah, Dr. Yamina reminded us, the law of creation, then the oppression will be over. And I was super excited to end on that note. So I wanted to fill you guys all in. I hope you guys appreciated the little recap. And inshallah, ar-Rahman, we can begin. Bismillah.
Thank you, my dear. Okay. So we ended with this last week. I'll just read it again because it's connected to the next paragraph. And then we'll keep reading, inshallah. Indeed, a palace, sorry, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد. Indeed, a palace, which is built by 100 people, is sometimes protected by 100 guards in the face of a single vandal trying to set fire to a palace. The palace can remain standing only through 100 men protecting it, and by having recourse to the government and the king. For its existence is possible only through the existence of all its conditions and causes, asbab, but its non-existence and destruction may occur through the non-existence of a single condition. Just as the palace may be burnt to the ground by a layabout with a single match, so with some small actions, Satans from among jinn and men cause vast destruction and terrible non-physical conflagrations. Indeed, the basis and origin of all bad, evils, and sins is non-existence. It is destruction. The non-existence and destruction are concealed beneath apparent existence. Thus, relying on this point, Satans from among jinn and men and evil beings withstand a boundless force with an extremely weak force, driving the people of truth and reality, Ahlul Haqq wal Haqiqa, to continually seek refuge at the divine court and to flee to it. The Quran therefore mobilizes great forces, tashidat, for their protection. It gives for their use 99 divine names and intensely commands them to withstand those enemies. I really like the idea of the divine names here, the beautiful names being our shield against these forces of non-existence and destruction. Because with everything we've talked about until now, you know, one of the things that we keep coming back to is that the divine names and the attributes of God only like make sense and give us peace if they are eternal. That's what, you know, gives them meaning. So understanding absolute generosity is antithetical to it being limited or just manifesting on this earth in this life. It has to be eternal for it to actually provide a source of comfort, and actually ease our anxiety, our worries, our fears. So here the idea of the 99 divine names, the beautiful names being given to us for protection against non-existence and destruction, just seem to like kind of bring everything together. And also, you know, going back to Sarah's recap, and some of what we've talked about in the previous weeks, one thing that I really, really liked, one of our heart works, was the idea of, you know, which source of news are we tuned into? Are we tuned into television news, social media news, or are we tuned into the news of the Quran, of the revelation, of divine guidance? And so, you know, in the WhatsApp group, we've been sharing Quran news, and here what I am kind of being reminded is, and yes, I will zoom in and go. What I'm being reminded here is when I am looking at the world around me and my place in it, and I'm trying to, one, make sense of everything that is happening to me and to the world around me, and thinking about where I fit in to everything. What is my responsibility? What is the thing that I have to do? This 99 divine names, it's not only a shield and protection against like this onslaught of destruction and non-existence, these messages, because here he says the non-existence and destruction are concealed beneath apparent existence. So there is a sort of lying or delusion part to it where we're made to believe that this is the reality, right? So like what we were talking about last week and what Sarah was saying is that yes, we're making our prayers, yes, we're doing this and that, but we don't really have hope or certainty or faith in the absolute power or the infinite mercy or the eternal justice of the Creator. So there seems to be this warping of reality in my perception. And it's saying, okay, when that is happening, or when you feel like you are in danger of falling into this misperception, this is what you need to use. This is going to be your anchor. It's going to ground you. The 99 divine names, they're going to help you withstand those enemies. Sarah, you asked, what does he mean by non-existence? Arabic here, I think, is Adam, but I don't know if that's actually Arabic. I think it might be Ottoman Turkish. But similar to what we were talking about previously, when we are doing destruction or destroying something, non-existence of a single condition can cause immense destruction, he said. And some of the more relatable examples of this could be, like, for example, and this is something we talk about all the time, growing a flower, right? So there are many, many conditions that have to come together for the flower to grow. But if you don't do just one of those conditions, if you don't give it enough water, for example, it will die. So here, this is how I'm understanding non-existence and destruction. And before we move on to the next paragraph, if anyone else has any questions or comments, please go ahead. And if not, we'll give the mic to Dr. Yamina if she would like to add anything. Do you want me to read your questions again, Sarah, or do you want to read them?
Yeah, I just feel like it's a very profound paragraph, and I definitely don't grasp, I'm not grasping, and I think the words non-existence just threw me off. And when he said like relying on this point, which wasn't very clear, I know you were saying like the face value of things type of thing. They withstand a boundless force with an extremely weak force. I just wasn't quite sure what that means. If anybody would like to share their reflections, or Dr. Yamina, if you can help us clarify, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I think that's what Nurbanu explained. And if you go back to the previous paragraph, it also explains what it means. Because it's destruction, it looks to non-existence. It's not bringing something into existence, it's destroying it. So it becomes much easier. And it looks like strength, but it's misleading if we think that's real strength. But at the same time, he's saying, when he gives the example of the setting a fire to a palace, you will have lots of guards we need to protect that building, because if one person hides somewhere and arsons the building, then a building that takes years to build can just disappear so easily. So the question from the beginning was like, if we are al-haq wa haqiqa, for the people of truth, the people of reality, the people of goodness and existence, why do we need to keep seeking refuge from evil and seeking help from Allah all the time? So when there is one aspect that looks to us individually, we are totally in need, totally weak, and we need help, full help, 24/7. And if we are not aware of this, it means we don't know who we are, that we are being sustained here and now, and that we are 100% in need of being given existence, given life, given sight, given everything. Nothing belongs to us. Everything is given to us here and now. And as it looks to social life and to others, there is this aspect of things, which is actually what the power that human being has, is the power of destruction. Anything else, when it comes to bringing something good into existence, it's always a prayer. It is Allah who creates for us. We pray, He creates. When it comes to destruction, it's just either destroying by destroying what is, or by stopping one needed thing. For instance, the whole, there is water, there is everything, but you can stop water and there is the whole system. You can just shut the tap off and no one receives water from the other side. Many houses, many may not receive water. So he's talking about that, the power of destruction that looks to non-existence. And so one is not to do it ourselves. And the second is to seek protection from this evil and destruction. And to always seek refuge in God through his names. It is deep, it's something that we need to digest because usually it seems like true power. And the more evil a person is, the more vicious they tap into that power of destruction. But is it true power? No. Should we be scared of that? No. Of course, if there is no one to take refuge in, then definitely it is scary.
And I'll also add to piggyback off of that, and it connects to Matt's comment. It's definitely scary if we think that this physical world, this physical body, this physical destruction is who we are and is the reality. But because we just finished the study of the 29th word, where matter, quotes in Rumi's language, rahimahullah, matter is not essential, matter does not create, matter has no power, matter is just subservient to amr, divine command. So when you say like, okay, yes, with our free will, one person can do a whole lot of evil, destruction. They can, choose to destroy, for example, buildings, the whole city. And yet, you said that's not real power, and it's such a relief to be reminded of that, because it does seem so big and scary until we realize who we are has nothing to do with matter. The reality that's moving people has nothing to do with matter. The reality of what's moving the sun, every single position in that we're called to take notice of 5 times a day, that is immense beings of carrying immense power. And we talked about the angels, Mikael, so Michael and Jibril. So you guys missed that too. Our friends coming here for the first time, we talked about how Dr. Yamina brought to our attention that in this statement on the screen, angels Gabriel and Michael were mentioned together, as in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, the cow, those 2 angels are also mentioned together. And Dr. Yamina mentioned it as something to take note of, because Jibril alayhi salam, Angel Gabriel, is known to be the angel that brings revelation. And anyone who was in Dr. Ali's halaqah this week, I know our friends also, we talked about this living experience of receiving revelation. And the revelation of scripture is not ever absent from the universe. So the universe is also unfolding, which is also his sacred revelation in action form, which is all carried out by Michael, Mikael alayhi salam. So when we're talking about immense power, there's an immense mover of the sun. The entire horizon is held up, the moon is held up, and these things are not just held up by themselves. There's actual beings operating amidst us that we tend to lose sight of. And here we are in Halakha studying how to gain sight through Iman, through contemplating and reflecting, so we can gain insight as to their reality. And like Matt said in the comments, who we actually are, because what we see is just the tip of the iceberg, Dr. Yamina was saying. Thank you, Dr. Yamina, for clarifying that. Anybody want to share, Nurbanu, or if not, then you can also continue, inshallah. At any point, if anyone wants to share, feel free to unmute or, raise your hand and share.
Yeah, I was thinking like one last thing is this thing we keep coming back to, especially, in the 29th word. One of the names we really studied and reflected on was, the absolutely powerful one. And in our world, we tend to think or associate a lot of destruction with a lot of power. So we think they have the power to destroy this many things, kill this many people, or prevent this from happening. And we think of this as real power. At least, like, for me, that seems to be what kind of has been programmed into my mind. That's my initial go-to reaction to things, like, no one is powerful enough to stop these people. They are too powerful. But then I was just thinking of when Prophet Ibrahim, I believe, was talking to the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh says, I decide who lives and who dies, but the only thing he does is killing someone or not killing someone, not actually giving life, or not also giving death either. But this idea of our misperception of power being connected to destruction, I think that's what I was trying to get at with this sentence. The non-existence and destruction are concealed beneath apparent existence. It's it seems as if they are powerful. It seems as if the destruction is a symbol of real power, but it's just destruction. It's non-existence. So it's actually very, very, like he said, up here, where did he say it? You highlighted it in the chat, and now I can't find it. Boundless force with an extremely weak force. There you go. Okay, so let us continue reading. Okay. From this answer, became apparent the tip of a vast truth and basis of an awesome matter. It was like this. Just as paradise bears the crops of all the worlds of existence and produces the eternal shoots of the seeds grown in this world, so in order to display the grievous consequences of the innumerable, terrible worlds of non-existence, Adam, and nothingness, hell scorches up the products of that non-existence, and among its other functions, that terrible factory cleanses the universe of existence of the filth of the world of non-existence. So hell here cleanses the universe of existence of the filth of the world of non-existence. For now we shall not open the door of this awesome matter. God willing, it shall be elucidated later. This is also what we've been talking about in the study of Surah Al-Furqan. If you guys remember, in how we understood what paradise meant, Lecturer Ali said, anything you want happens immediately. It's immediately created, and at the core of it is existence. And in hell, it was non-existence. So you want water, but the water gives you nothing. You want food, but the food gives you nothing. It doesn't fulfill you. It doesn't quench you. It doesn't do any of those things, because I like the way he worded it here. Just as paradise bears the crops of all the worlds of existence and produces the eternal shoots of the seeds grown in this world. And this is another thing that we've been talking about. And, you know, this treatise, especially The Fruits of Belief, is about what our beliefs should kind of taste like, how they should affect us. So not to just be some intellectual practice or thought in the back of our minds, but how is it that belief in angels or the angelic side of creation, how will that taste? What kind of experience will it give me? And we talked about, you know, everything we do here, every moment that I get to see the beautiful names of God is like a sample of paradise that I'm living. And this is a recurring theme, of course, in what we're reading and what we're studying. So I like this idea that real existence, right? Like if we go back to the paragraph before, we said destruction is not real power, real existence. And obviously we said, okay, 99 divine names. And what we've been talking about is that, okay, the only constant truth in the universe is the beautiful names of God, was one of the things that Dr. Yamina said in our study a couple months ago. And it has really stuck with me. So if this is my perception of the world and this is how I'm living, and everywhere I look, I strive to see those beautiful names, that means like in every moment of conscious decision making, I'm trying to stamp it with a name of the, you know, most merciful one, most just one, whatever. And so that those kind of like stamps of existence are going to be are the eternal shoots of the seeds grown in this world.
Mhm. When we start seeing the world in or through the divine names, then everything is going to change, and what he's saying here starts making more sense. When we make prayers that look to true existence, that looks to good and goodness and well-being, it's always going to be attached to one or many beautiful names, even if the person who is making the prayer may not be aware, but looking at it, we know that he's calling onto a name. For instance, there is people who are sick, and you want them to be well. So whether that person is aware or not, looking at them, we say this person is praying for healing, for compassion, for goodness, and all of that pertain to the beautiful names of God. When it comes to the opposite, as he said in the previous paragraph, when he says the non-existence, and he says first at the beginning, indeed, the basis of and origin of all bad, evils, and sins is non-existence. It is destruction. The non-existence and destruction are concealed beneath apparent existence. It looks like that person is doing something. For instance, doing something to the person, so the person now lost their health, lost their their home, lost something, destruction. So it looks like there is an existence of something, but when you look at it from the beautiful names of God, that person is actually actively seeking the non-existence of the divine names, or less divine names. If there is a person is very healthy, so the name of Shafi and Mu'afi, the healer, is manifesting there very clearly. The person comes and harms that person, the healthy person, and now there is less Shafi. The healer is almost very barely, you can see it. So when we see it through the divine names, we understand why he's saying that it is actually non-existence that they are seeking. Although it appears, it is concealed beneath an apparent existence, because of course, if it is manifesting in this worldly life, it has to have some existence, but the existence is much lower as far as the manifestation and the reflection of the divine names is. They're like after breaking the mirrors to the beautiful names of God.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina. Something came to my mind, if I may make a reflection here.
Yes.
I think when we look at the decomposition processes of our food and human or animal body, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's way of cleaning the atmosphere, whether it is through storms or through the waves and tidal moonrise and tide phenomenon, also with how beautifully the food gets created by little tiny seeds, which we have discussed before. And there is a self regeneration built in. And in the case of the death processes, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran that ruh is a matter of Allah. And if we look at the gist, the extract, the essence, related analogies throughout Islamic wisdom, whether in the Sufi tradition or in even Quranic ayat, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us that what is left is either hay, the world, the dunya is like as if it became abundant with fruits and and vegetation, and then it's going to be reduced to chaff. Same is with us. When we are going through the processes of growth, we are shedding our skin, regeneration processes take place. So I think even in that, there is this understanding of if we are grateful, then we are able to recognize all the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our own existence as a sign of His fashioning of matter and how it is paired with ruh, the essence, the wisdom, the akal, the matters of the heart. That's why I think the tazkiyah of emotions and thoughts and intentions begins in the heart, and then the mind or the brain uh, consciousness works on it, but constantly both the heart through maybe the dabbur of Quran and uh, even when people go into khalwa and remember or chant Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names or the kalima, there is this attestation that you always guide us towards, that we are to strengthen and perfect or at least near perfect it, so that I heard Brother Umar Suleiman's uh, um, small video, I think in one of his khutbahs, that it is so important, and even when he makes mention to population in Gaza, people, children, adults, women who are losing left and right everything, and in such torturous, gruesome ways, they are always remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names, even in their death and destruction as it is unfolding. And so it's kind of an inbuilt practice that takes practice over time, and it's not something that can happen in the blink of an eye. And I think that humbled me to recognize that um, fruit and vegetables and animals and the pregnancy time period for women and human babies as well as female animals, it takes so long in different ways. And then, the raising or the harvesting and then storing or, um, preserving in terms of foods and also raising human animals, babies, takes time. And then again, the lifespan culminates into near death or post death um, signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's all encompassing, um, detailed, under His watchful eyes, under His karamat, that He is there. That's why He says that through all the stages or states that we all go through, because we are His khalqat, we are His creation. And I think it will be a grave danger for us to miss that um, that reminder that I created you from nothingness. And I see in the world those who are disbelievers or who are astray. That's where their sense of me comes from, the denial, the heedlessness, that somebody like God, the only God, can control me or is in control of my destiny. I'm not going to believe that. Nauzubillah. And so that train of logic or illogic, I should say, then renders people towards or inhumanity towards destruction, because they don't appreciate, if you were to go to an artist's studio and destroy their painting, they'll be hell mad, very upset. But this is Allah, and Allah's own creation, even if evil, even with His will, decides to or impulsively destroys other creation of Allah. Um, I feel a gulp in my throat how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold them accountable for this. And so our iman, I think, is like that cloak that alhamdulillah preserves us. That's why we ask Allah Ta'ala that we seek protection from shaitan with you, because you are the only source, the only ultimate being the creator of all of the universes and heavens and the skies and the earth, with whom we can feel um, a retreat. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names and Quran then are our armor in that sense. So it really opens up the minds to the behind the scenes science and spirituality and religiosity that we are missing in our daily lives, because we have a hard time grasping the flow of information from strictly the consciousness perspective or the senses and the perceptions, and how they are under an overload, because too much is happening and you can't make sense. And yet the Iman brings us to a point, if we are able to and we are um, fortunate enough to hold on to it, that that makes us remember that there is a sequence or a consequence to all of this. We are not just in our bodies able to see it with our naked eyes, the behind the scenes, behind the veils happenings by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as of course angels conduct them or carry them through. Jazakillah khair for this document that we are reflecting on for all sisters in their reflections, and Dr. Yamina, your explanations. I hope what I said makes sense as an example of how I am understanding this, the fruit of faith. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah Sarah. As you were talking, what I was thinking of was how in one of our earlier sessions we said that, you know, death also has a malakut aspect. So your reflections kind of brought me back there too. How we're looking at death and destruction. And you know, it kind of goes along with what we're saying here, is that if we look at it in this way of, oh, it shows us who is powerful, and if they're causing all this death and destruction, they must have power, and losing hope or misplacing our faith, that means we're not looking at it through the lens of divine names. But if I am looking at the Melekut side of death, the angelic side of the creation of death, because death is also being created, we said, then I'm seeing the divine names there. And like you said, it becomes a shield then, for me to deal with what I'm seeing, because it creates, not it creates, but it wakes all these feelings of frustration, fury, anger, injustice in us. So thank you for sharing.
Jazakallah. Yes, I agree. Thanks, Nurbanu.
Of course. Okay, so let's keep going, inshallah. Yeah, any other reflections on this paragraph? If not, I'll keep reading. And again, you know, the group, WhatsApp group is always open. So if, you know, anything comes to you throughout the week, please share with the rest of us, because we all benefit from each other's points of view. Okay. Another particular example. Yes, here is a mistypo. Okay. Another particular example of the fruit of belief in the angels concerns the questioning angels, Munkar and Nakir. It is this: in my imagination, I entered my grave, telling myself, I am bound to enter here the same as everyone else. While taking fright at the bleakness and despair of the lonely, dark, cold, narrow, solitary confinement of the grave, two blessed friends, resembling Munkar and Nakir, appeared. They began to debate with me. My heart and grave were broadened, illumined, and warmed. Windows were opened up onto the world of spirits. I felt truly happy at that situation, which I saw in the imagination then, and will see in reality in the future, and I offered thanks. So these two paragraphs are connected, so I'll just read both. A madrasa student who was studying Arabic grammar died, and in replying to Munkar and Nakir's question of who is your sustainer, thought he was in his own madrasa and said, who is the subject? Your sustainer is its predicate. Ask me something difficult, that's easy. It made both the angels and the spirits who were present and the diviner of graves who witnessed the incident laugh and brought a smile to divine mercy. Being delivered from torment, the late Hafiz Ali, a martyr hero of the Risale-i-Nur, died in prison while writing out and enthusiastically studying the treatise of the fruits of belief. This is the 11th ray. Just as he replied in the grave to the questioning angels with the truths of the fruits of belief, as he had in court here, so I and the Risale-i-Nur students shall reply to those questions with the brilliant and powerful proofs of the Risale-i-Nur, in the future in fact, and now in meaning, and will cause the angels to confirm them and appreciate them and congratulate them, God willing. I love it. And also Ameen for this dua in the end here. I will highlight two things here. Okay, so if you guys remember at the beginning of the 11th section here, Imam Nursi's explanation for one of the, I guess, fruits of belief was this transformation of the world from being desolate, lonely, cold, chaotic, into something that was cheered up, filled with angels and spirit beings, making the world laugh for joy. So this idea keeps coming up, and something Sarah always reminds us is that this is how Imam Nursi lived, this is what he experienced. And we sometimes talk about the history, of what he lived through, and for most of his life, he was in exile, he was in solitary confinement, and, despite being in those outwardly challenging situations, this is his inner experience. And here he says, I and the Risale-i-Nur students shall reply to those questions with the brilliant and powerful proofs from the Risale-i-Nur in the future, in fact, and now in meaning. So there's always a part of what we're studying and reflecting on and learning that looks to the now, and it should look to the now, because that is all we have. And the other thing that I really liked is this idea of being greeted by two blessed friends after you have died and you're in your grave. One of the things we talked about at the very beginning of this was how believing in the angel of death gives a lot of comfort to us, because our souls are our most precious things. It's the most valuable thing to us is our soul. And there is a being whose sole duty is to take care of our souls after our death in this, physical world, and kind of help transport us into the next stage of our lives. So I just really like the way that he is looking at angels as friends, as sources of light, friendship, warmth, not cold, not apathetic, not uninvested. I think sometimes, at least for me, there is this idea that, or perception that angels are kind of there doing their own thing. They don't really have anything to do with me. They don't really care about me. I don't really have a personal connection or relationship with them. They have their duty, they have their responsibility. I have my own. We don't really interact. Or if you think of Munkar and Nakir, it's quite scary. Like, they're going to be questioning me.
It seems like we're back then. Remember, there are two ways of being in the world. Either being stuck in the horizontal, and it seems like cause and effect, me and things, and that's all there is. And through the Quran, we are taught that the relationship between what we see as cause and effect, the relationship which I see between me and the rest of the world, are actually the ayat. It means they are pointing to beyond, to something, to purpose, to meaning, to all those meanings that pertain to the beautiful names of God, to a source of being, and how the flow of everything is, as everything is transient and leaving to seemingly non-existence, still the flow is carrying on. And so we realize that there is a source of existence, a source of bringing things into being. Now, these two ways of being in the world, of perceiving ourselves and the rest of the creation, we need to keep them always as a framework in our mind. And it's very quick, it's very easy then to find out where we are. Have we relapsed and went to the, let's call it the horizontal. In the Risale Nur's language is the ismi versus harfi, let's say horizontal versus vertical. So if we are seeing something beyond, and we learn to look at how every cause-effect relationship is an ayah, if we learn to read the ayat and how they are glorifying God and witnessing to and proclaiming the beautiful names of God, refuting tasbih is refuting shirk, that it's not happening on its own, and at the same time proclaiming and witnessing the names of God, reflecting, if you can say, mirroring the names of God. If we live in this way and we read the ayats actively, and as we read the ayats, we go back in the anfus within, and we also start realizing that I don't exist on my own and I don't own anything. So my seeing is a living evidence that he's the seer, he's the one who makes me see and therefore makes everything see. So if anything sees and is seen, it is because there is a seer who makes everything see. And you can apply this for all the attributes that we experience in life. Then what we learned at the 29th word is from when we go to the beautiful names of God, there we find something that pertains to meaning. So if we see a tree, it looks like it's a tree, it's a trunk, especially in the winter. It doesn't seem like much is going on, yet there is a lot of meaning and purposes there. So just like the bones and flesh are not the human being, so the wood and whatever the matter there is not all what that being is about. That is the outer form, the tip of the iceberg, and the other one, just like a human being, the inward aspect looks to the ruh, that's coming through divine command. When I interact with the rest of the creation through meaning, through the ruh, through full names of God, what I'm interacting with there is something there that looks to consciousness, that's undergoing activities that require purpose and meaning and consciousness, and that looks to the angels, to at least let me say the angelic parts, because I don't want to go to angels so fast, and so there is no misunderstanding, because it's not only something that we understand just by reflecting intellectually. You have to actually ponder and reflect and meditate upon that until you know and you feel the angels everywhere, in the tree, in the water, in the rain, in the wind, in everything. And so the angels, the moment we start interacting with them and the angelic part, then it's not something that is cold and this. If it feels cold and things, it means I'm talking about the angels that I read about, that I read there must be angels. So where are these angels? Very like hidden beings. They must be doing something. But if it's something, if the angels are beings that I interact with, then definitely I become acquainted with them through their our interactions. And so they cannot be cold. They're not only meaningful and purposeful, everything is created, there is taskhir. So everything is actually being given at the surface of life, of well-being, so the more we have an interaction, a personal interaction with them, the more it is an iman, not only an information, the more they are definitely very close, very warm. They are the bearers of the beautiful names of God. So how can they be, how to say, distant from us? They are the closer we can think of.
Jazakallah, Takfir Mina. Yeah, I feel like that's the distinction that has been our intention with the halaqah, is to go from what we read about angels and what we think we know about angels to actually experience this belief, like the belief in angels. And so what we have here, at least with the reading, is kind of like what it's supposed to feel like, right? So if I see the reflections of the divine names, like you said, and they're coming to me through this angelic side of existence, then I can't think of angels as irrelevant to me or uncaring about me or have nothing to do with me. It's like, it doesn't make sense. It contradicts what they are doing. So, I will leave these 2 paragraphs on the screen if anyone else has any questions, comments, reflections.
So then now you can see why these examples are like an application, even like Munkar and Nakir, which we may feel like they are coming to question us, but actually if it is angelic, then it is always for our good. It always looks to the beautiful names of God, and so it makes sense now. And even the students here, if he's in a madrasa, he's learning Arabic in order to learn the Quran, to learn to be close to God. So he's like on the path to fulfill the purpose of his life, but he's so into learning Arabic grammar that when they said Man Rabbuk, he understood Man Mubtada Rabbuk. Khabar, he says, is the predicate. So when we read this, we smile. So he's saying divine mercy also brought a smile to divine mercy. So you can see also here the Munkar and Nakir are not some unreasonable like jail guards or something. They are also a manifestation of divine rahmah. Alhamdulillah.
It's just a footnote. I want to reminisce what, as a child, I was told that, you will be asked about who's your Rabb in the grave once you get there. And if you answer it correctly, you're in good shape. If you don't answer it correctly, you're in big trouble. And
You'd better memorize the answer.
Yeah, like, and then we used to kind of go over it, like when it says, who's your Rabb, we're gonna say God, and who's your prophet, we're gonna say
Rabbi Allah.
yeah, Muhammad alayhi salam is my prophet, and so on. And part of me was okay, I hope we don't forget it there. And then they used to add the Sunday school teachers used to add that but of course you can only give these answers if you lived accordingly. And it was so elusive. What does it mean to live accordingly? Like, according to your Rabb is one, your Rabb is God. So what does that exactly mean? And we used to think, I guess, more about following the basic guidelines of halal and haram. But it's much wider than that. And here I really liked the way.
At one level, that's also.
Yeah, of course, yes. But there could still be implicit Rabbs in my life that I might be putting my hopes in this and that.
Definitely. If we are not living conscious, we have lots of Rabbs stuff.
Yeah. So then inshallah, so I really like the connection here that we will see that our Rabb is God here through seeing these evidences, and what connects with what you have said earlier. We need help 24/7. We are 100% in need of being given existence, and that's the task. That's the journey, because we not only, but we tend to feel that we are dependent only when we have a crisis, or we some moments in the day, but to increase those moments and to be aware that, you know, I'm not the seer, I'm not the one who's able to talk, I'm not the one who's able to breathe on her own. Nothing is in my own, I'm completely dependent. If we could nurture that. I remember last class also, Dr. Yamina mentioned that we do this. Why do we do this thing, Ubudiyya, being an abd, being a worshipper, as a hobby, as it were, and not as a career? We don't put as much emphasis to it. And if, inshallah we can. So inshallah, it is not just a weekly hobby or, you know, once in a while, but it can become, and it is becoming, inshallah, our daily career building, where we live with this awareness of Ubudiyya. And that's the answer also in the grave, to who's your Rabb, inshallah.
And in the last paragraph that Nurbanu read, it says, so I and the Risale Nur students shall reply to these questions with the brilliant and powerful proofs of the Risale Nur in the future. It means on the day or when we die, inshallah. Inshallah, we leave this world with Iman and with Shahada. And now in meaning because we are constantly leaving being the older one. A new one is coming. The older one is leaving, like we were babies, we were toddlers, we were teenagers. And so yesterday is not here. The yesterday that we were in yesterday is not here. This morning is not here. So there is a constant flow of leaving this world, which we can call like small deaths. So that because in our, when we don't think about it, it feels like if someone dies at 80, as if 80 years ended on that day. No, only that last moment ended then. Everything else have left before, and we better be aware of that. And when we are aware of that, actually, it's easier to prepare for death, because it doesn't seem like death is waiting for us somewhere in the future, but at the same time, it's happening, it's going on right here and now. It's in the immediate past. So it becomes easier to prepare for death, because we don't see it as very, very far from us. I mean, personally, I used to think, oh, I know that I will die, but I couldn't even imagine it. But now I don't have to imagine it, because I just think about last year, last month, last week, yesterday, this morning, and I have no doubt. Because it's not like I have to imagine it. I don't have to imagine it. I have lived it. I am living it. And after a certain age, you look at the mirror and you see that you are getting older and older, closer and closer to the other side. What does it mean? Something is leaving this world. The younger you has already left. So, and now in meaning. And it's not, how do you say, dark. It just, we realize that actually death is not something to dread, because it's just like going to sleep, waking up in the morning. It happens. Divine power is so powerful, and divine compassion is so that everything happens so easily, so much that we take it for granted, as if we are always the same, but we are not. You can look, if you have a photo album, how you were crawling and then learning to walk, and then you were 6 years old, and then 10-year-old, and then 20, and then how come something is going on, but it's going on with so much mercy, with so much ease, that unless we pause and reflect, we won't even think about it. And so in the same way, we will die and be resurrected again. Like every morning we are resurrected from sleep. And it's an ayah in the Quran, like the sleep is a mini death. And it is an ayah itself. Going to sleep and waking in the morning is an ayah, it's a sign to reflect on. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much for those reminders, Dr. Yamina. I think to truly bring this sentiment to life, it's clear through his language. Imam Nursi, rahimahullah, befriended the angels. So even in solitary confinement and his experience, I mean, he was clearly looking at the sky, whatever time he had, or just seeing the trees swaying. And instead of just seeing a tree swaying or a sky upheld, he was seeing that the way this was being carried out could only be through angelic beings carrying out divine commands. So, I mean, I'm looking out my window and I have trees, you know, maybe we'll see a squirrel, or it's New York, maybe a rat or a mouse at this hour. And I don't think of angels really. I mean, I can intellectually say, you know, these things, but it's totally different to look out your window and see this movement of life with, you know, dressed in a particular way, with, you know, all of this action taking place. So the leaves now are changing. And it seems like the leaves are just changing, but truly there's will, there's a choice being enacted on the matter. And we know that that choice belongs to the source, but the enactment of that choice are beings. So it just warms my heart to, again, rahimahullah rahmatan wasi'ah, God have infinite mercy on his soul, to like feel the truth of a human embodiment of looking out the window and seeing angels and reflecting on his feelings, like these feelings that come because we completed a very long series on how our feelings are given to us in a miraculous way that must be delivered through beings carrying this message. So again, he befriended them there. He befriended them there for a very long time. Dr. Yamina tells us, like, you know, sit with your feelings as though you're sipping tea with your feelings, like just welcome them and see what they have to say. And it sort of felt like just a mental activity. And now just feeling his language that he, at least the English translation, it's filled with just color and feeling for me to read. He was living with them and befriending them truly. So it's like when you say it's like sip tea with your feelings, it's like because the feelings are actually beings. And that changes everything. It's not even an intellectual activity like, oh, it's my brain, it's the amygdala, it's this, it's that. Because we're still unlearning all of the stuff that we were taught that has nothing to do with, or that covers the true language of. So now, even in death, to see this friendship extend to his last breath and bring him a smile, it really brings such a smile
I'm filled with joy at his experience, and I want us to be able to feel the truth of how he lived, and then shares this text to bring us to this reality. Like, your soul is this very, it's the reality of who you are. I mean, I know that we have some friends from our other halakha here today. Where Dr. Ali would say, just look in the mirror, like almost like a challenge, like look at yourself in the mirror if you can tolerate it for a few minutes. It was kind of like one of the first conversations we've had in halakha. And I remember being like, what's so big about that? But then going in the mirror and actually looking at yourself and just being like, whoa, like who is that looking back at me? And having this really strange moment of there's a real being that sees through you, and your eyes are just the vehicle to sort of experience this being. And then now the feelings are beings, and the trees have beings. I know Alia is here. Dr. Yamina shared with us this hadith that she also loves, of the mountain loves us and we love the mountain. So the trees love us and we love the trees. Like, there's just a real magical interaction. So then if you feel that in your life, then of course, then whoever comes to take your most precious, like Imam Nursi says, your most precious existence, your soul, to the next level, could only be friends, like entrusted to such a task. So I just wanted to share how heartwarming it is to look forward to befriending the angels, because there's like a water angel and a tree angel and the breeze angels, like, or is that Mikael, maybe the breeze, since it's natural, quote unquote natural events. It's just such a, it breaks the mundane completely. It just shatters this idea of mundane, to know that anything that you experience is only given through a power of delivering you a message, and those are real beings. So Bismillah, may we be excited to discover them. If you're not already in our WhatsApp group for homework, I'll post it again in our Receiving Nur group. And I'm going to pause there for any questions or comments or thoughts, because we would love to hear more, inshallah.
Just one comment that came to me as you were speaking about the hadith of the Prophet is the ayah also that that the mountains and the birds are singing with Prophet Job, like singing, like he's the head of the orchestra. I remember one of our early Receiving Nur halakas, like that image of Allah making the human being the head of the orchestra, like everything is singing around you and waiting for you to join in at the beginning, but then to lead the orchestra, depending on your level of seeing and level of being and level of faith at one moment when you have the seeing of Job and the realization of Job, then you actually get the mountains and the birds to sing with you, which is an amazing imagery.
I mean, Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam.
Sorry, I mean David, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Friends, it is 10 o'clock. We will stop here, inshallah, and continue next week here. And yes, our fourth session at the Diyanet Center in Maryland is coming up in 2 weeks. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday at 2 p.m. So for anyone who is in the area or would like to trek or carpool, please come out. We will be talking about healing with istighfar. So that's really kind of on topic, and you should come and join us, inshallah. Okay. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة على رسولنا صلوات.